Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. On today's show, could another swap deal be on? Not even a swap deal, but Manchester United are very interested in Kvara from Napoli. Going to pronounce his full name in a second, bit of a tongue twister, but an elite talent that looks like he's on his way out of Napoli. Young player, PSG are interested. Could this be a domino in the transfer window? This could affect the Rashford sale. It could affect Garnacho potentially going to PSG. It could affect Manchester United doing business in January, and it could even affect Manchester United going for Nuno Mendes. Would you want this to happen? When I say not even a swap deal, it's very hard to do swap deals, especially when the likes of Marcus Rashford is involved and it is pure profit in terms of FFP. But could we somehow work out a deal with Napoli where they take Marcus Rashford, we take Kvara, there's some sort of money exchange in there? Could that be on the agenda? PSG seem like the first in line, but Manchester United have apparently got in contact with Napoli to try and suggest that they would like to take Kvara in return for Marcus Rashford. Get your comments in now. Loads of different news coming out. We've got a Georgian outlet, which is obviously where Kvara is from. We've got news coming out from France, as PSG are involved in this deal, and we have news coming out from Fabrizio Romano as well. So let's get straight into it. So it is Kvicha Kvaratskhelia from Napoli. I think I got the name right. Only 23 years old. I actually thought he was a little bit older. I thought he was around 25, 26. Still obviously a good age, but 23 years old is incredible for a talent that is here. If we ended up getting Kvara in, he is a huge talent at 23 years old with a huge future ahead of him. But it's coming out from the Quip, so this is the French outlet, that Manchester United are interested in Napoli winger Kvicha Kvaratskhelia, and they are proposing the idea of exchanging Marcus Rashford for the winger. So that's the first one. Manchester United are interested in this player and they are suggesting in exchanging Marcus Rashford. I assume if we did get Kvara in, it would be to play in one of them 10 roles. That's where we'd be looking to play him, because he is that creative-minded player, but also a little bit like a winger as well, which is what Ruben Amorim likes. He likes a winger type, but he also likes a creative outlet as well, like a more midfielder type. So I am assuming that is where he would go. And it's also coming in from the Georgian journalist that Kvicha Kvaratskhelia wants to leave Napoli. The player does not plan to sign a new contract that the club offered him a few months ago, and Napoli is seriously considering selling the Georgian player in January. It then comes out from Fabrizio Romano that at the moment PSG are favourites and the Parisian club are preparing their first offer. Napoli's important new contract offered to Kvicha Kvaratskhelia remains available on the table. Still no answer. Understand Paris Saint-Germain remain attentive to the situation and in active talks, in active contact to be informed. Kvara on top of the list of PSG since last summer. More on this deal is that Kvara and PSG and Napoli is in direct contact as PSG step up the efforts to make it happen now. Open to offering players including Skriniar plus cash in the deal. It now depends on the Napoli decision. Apparently Fabrizio has just tweeted again. So let me just get on that now. So much news coming in this January transfer window. Also, the name makes it so hard for me to keep up. And I know that a lot of you guys are saying in the chat that I'm butchering the name. I have literally tried for the last 20 minutes trying to pronounce this name. If you want to hop on camera and try and say this name over and over again, you give it a go as well. But I'm doing my best possible at pronouncing this name. It's a very hard name to pronounce, so I'm trying my best. Maud's told me before the show starts that people just call him Kvara for short. I've been trying to say the full thing for the last 20 minutes. You all know who I'm talking about. I'm trying my best to pronounce it. So yeah, that's all I can give you. But Fabrizio Romano has just updated on the situation. He said that Kvicha Kvaratskhelia has definitely opened doors to a January exit. PSG are on it. Paris Saint-Germain favourites and in direct contact with Napoli as revealed today. Package around €80 million discussed with Kvaratskhelia in talks with PSG over personal terms. It is progressing well. So obviously PSG are currently the front runners in this deal, but as we know, things can change very quickly. Milan were the front runners in the Joshua Zirkzee deal. Real Madrid were the front runners in the Leny Yoro deal. Manchester United might become aware that this player is available in the market and they might try and get on it, and they might try and use Marcus Rashford to try and strike a deal. We know we're up against it with FFP restraints, but this could be a domino effect in the market for Manchester United in many different ways, which is why I wanted to lead on it on today's show. I mean, the first thing is, we know that PSG are currently leading the race for this player. So say PSG do end up striking a deal with Napoli for the player, that rules out Marcus Rashford and Alejandro Garnacho going to PSG, because they're going getting a player very similar from Napoli. So the reports that PSG are looking at Alejandro Garnacho will start to die down, and I don't think PSG were ever going to go back in for Marcus Rashford anyway. I said a while ago on the show, and I said to Mark, from what I have heard, which, you know, I speak to quite a few journalists when we're in and around Europe, what I heard was that PSG were not going to go back in for Marcus Rashford because they felt like they had the fingers burnt a long time ago, which when Marcus Rashford was debating between signing his Manchester United contract, the new contract, the big contract that he's on, or PSG were definitely in the race trying to get Marcus Rashford then, and they felt a little bit used in that situation, so they didn't want to go back in. It didn't suit their current structure in the way that they're trying to structure their club. So I think it rules out Garnacho and Rashford if he was ever a possibility, but I don't think he ever would. So that affects Manchester United in that way. It also could mean that PSG might have to sell to make some money back. Who are Manchester United interested in? Nuno Mendes. Could it open the door there? But also it could mean that Manchester United swoop in on this deal and they say, Napoli, knock on the door to Napoli. They say, look, give you Scott McTominay last summer. He's been cracking for you, hasn't he? And let's be honest, Scott McTominay is killing it over in Napoli. He's doing fantastically well in Serie A. And I'm very sure that they're happy with the money that they paid for him and what he's delivering. So Sergeant Ratcliffe, INEOS, Omar Barada, knock on the door and say, look, Scott McTominay worked out very well for you. If there is truth in you being interested in Marcus Rashford, we could strike up a permanent deal there. Okay, we might not get Kavra back in terms of if he goes to PSG, but they might get the money from PSG, €80 million deal, to have the money to then buy Rashford as the replacement for this player. So, okay, I know a lot of people would be interested in bringing this player to Manchester United in a swap deal. They're very hard to do. That is a possibility. But even if he does still end up going to PSG, Fabrizio Romano here is talking about an €80 million deal. €80 million going to Napoli. Talks that Napoli would be interested in Marcus Rashford. That could solve the loan obligation to buy. It could solve the loan deal. And it could mean that Marcus Rashford could have a permanent exit away from Manchester United in January, and it also could give Manchester United the money to spend now, whereas we would have been waiting for the summer. So it lines the pockets of us to invest in Ruben Amorim's transfer window. So it's a massive, massive domino effect in terms of how this could affect Manchester United. And I've just seen Junior in the chat saying we're not getting Kavra. We might not get him. But you can't rule it out. Nobody thought we were going to get Leny Yoro. Nobody thought that was going to happen. And say if Manchester United did enter the conversation and they did approach Kavra's camp and they were like, look, we would like to bring you to Manchester United. We see you fitting here. We see you fitting in Ruben Amorim's project. And PSG are also approaching his camp and saying, you know, we want you. This is where we want you for. They have been interested in Kavra for a long time now. I was looking back on videos Fabrizio Romano was doing about Kavra going to PSG about a year ago now. They've wanted him for a long time. So that long-standing interest could, you know, the player would be attracted to that because they've wanted him for a long time. But I was thinking about it before the show went live. If Manchester United went in and if PSG went in, where would you want to go at this moment in time? And they both have pros and cons. PSG, you're going to win silverware because of the league that you're in. PSG basically finished top of the league near enough every single year. So you're going to win silverware and you're guaranteed European football, Champions League football. That is a huge attraction for a player. But Manchester United, despite the fact we are currently 13th in the league, it is a new project. Ruben Amorim's exciting manager and the Premier League does hold weight. A lot of players are very attracted to the idea of playing Premier League football. So there is pros and cons on each side, and it's something the player would have to assess. If I had to sit here now and say, do I think Manchester United are going to get this player in January, I would say no. But I think there's definitely a possibility, and the door is open. And you can't just think about it entering the show saying, why are we doing a show on Marcus Rashford and Kvicha Kvaratskhelia potentially doing a swap deal with Napoli? That's never going to happen, because we have an asset that potentially Napoli want. Napoli have an asset that we potentially want, and PSG are in that race. Who do we want from PSG? We want Nuno Mendes. Do we want Marcus Rashford to go on a permanent transfer? Yes, we do. So it's a domino effect in this transfer window that could affect Manchester United in many different ways. And also, like I said before, just the fact that Alejandro Garnacho has been heavily linked to PSG over the last couple of days, it shuts down that rumour for now. Because if they do end up getting Kavra from Napoli, they're not going to go for Alejandro Garnacho as well. So there's a lot of different areas that this could go down, and a lot of different ways that Manchester United could be affected by this deal. Tuto says, I'd be confident of the deal if United, like PSG, had already worked on the deal from last summer. What a signing that would be. Manchester United gives you 100% big wages. Kvaratskhelia will be another player on 300 grand a week. Beth, just say Kvicha. I mean, let me get in the chat down below. How should I say this name? Because I've got it here, pronounce it, Kvicha Kvaratskhelia. That is how I looked it up to pronounce. There is a video on YouTube of the actual player on YouTube Short saying, it's a hard name to pronounce, you can pronounce it, Kvicha Kvaratskhelia. But you guys are saying that I've done that wrong. I've watched Fabrizio Romano's pronunciation of it. I've watched the player's himself pronunciation of it. I've been practicing pronouncing it before I do the show. So all of the language experts in the chat, please tell me why that is wrong. Because I've literally heard it come out of the player's mouth himself. And then I got told it was also Kavra for short. So which way do you want me to say it? Do you want me to say Kavra? Do you want me to say Kvicha? Which one would you like me to do? Poll down below. Let me know. Let's do a poll on that. I was going to do a poll on would you take him at Manchester United, but I'm pretty sure it would be 90% yes. I'm pretty sure that most of you guys would want this player at Manchester United. He's a really exciting talent, a Georgian international, and he's somebody that I think could work in the Ruben Amorim system as a 10 in that role. And I think Ruben Amorim would really like the player. The only issue is Manchester United are so far fallen at this moment in time where it's like, players like this, it's really hard to attract. And it shouldn't be for Manchester United. It shouldn't be hard to go and get players like this and bring them into the club. He's a young player, 23 years old, super talented, looking for a move away from Napoli. Manchester United, who need to get another 10 into the club, especially a 10 with the ability and the play style like this player. See what I did there? Like this player. And we should be able to attract a player like that and be able to bring him in. But it would be a sad state of affairs for me if PSG are a more attractive prospect right now than Manchester United. But that's where we've fallen at this moment in time. We used to attract players like this so quickly. But how many young players have come to Manchester United and their career has started to dip? Do players really want to be competing at 13th, 14th in the league? Probably not. But we have got stuff to offer as well. You know, we've got a lot of young players as part of this project. Ruben Amorim is an exciting manager, and Manchester United are a huge name. It's Premier League football, and the wages would be quite good. We wouldn't be going out there offering him 300 grand a week, though. I've seen a chat in the comments down below saying 300 grand a week is what we would offer this player. We wouldn't. When Casemiro and Rashford leave the football club, which is, I think Rashford's on around 300 grand a week and Casemiro's on around 350 grand a week. That's what it's reported. Nobody will be offered more than the captain, Bruno Fernandes, because it's a way to get our wage structure in place. And if they were offered more, I would just be absolutely bamboozled by INEOS and their plan to get the wage structure down, especially when they're cutting off all sorts of spending from different areas of the club, cutting working class jobs, cutting charity costs. Like, we're not going to go and bring in a player for 300 grand a week on the same wage as our captain. I very much doubt it. But we would offer him a very decent wage. We have Trisha Nado in the chat saying Napoli don't want a swap. They need cash for FFP. Scott Treacher says Beth Kvaratskhelia is how it's pronounced, lol. Patrick Lynch says any player linked to PSG means that they are looking for big wages from the off to change our wage structure. I feel like Manchester United will have to avoid them. John says just say Kavrabeth, ignore the trolls. As someone with a complicated surname, I'll assume he's used to all sorts of pronunciations and he doesn't care. Honestly, people in the chat acting like, you know, they don't know who I'm talking about. His face is on the thumbnail. It's in the title. I'm going to go with, I mean, what's the poll saying actually? Because I was just going to say I'm going to go with Kavra, but I want to see what you guys are saying on the poll there. So Guga says, oh, only we Georgians can pronounce his name correctly. Just go for Kvaratskhelia. Just someone said, just call him Kevin. I don't want to be disrespectful. I'm trying my best to say his name. George says, Beth, I'm Georgian and that pronunciation is awful. For now, just say Kavra, not Kvara. Greg in my ear has just said it's Kvara. Or it's Kavra. I'm doing my best. Well, anyway, you know the news. What I'm trying to say is he is an option that is on the market this January, in a January market where not many players move from one club to another. Big players anyway. Obviously, there's always little things that you can do. I saw Goldbridge's show last night saying if we can't get a left back that we want, i.e. a Nuno Mendes, a Kirkes, someone along them lines, we should be at least looking for a left back on loan. There always is little loans you can do. You know, we've had the Weghorst, we've had the Sabitzer loan, we've had things like that in the past. We've had January deals where there is opportunities in the market. Manchester United will look at doing it, but it's rare that you get a big name moving in January. The last one I can remember for Manchester United was Bruno Fernandes, if I'm not mistaken. Best January move ever, in my opinion. I think Ricky will call me wrong on that. But for a player like this to be available on the January market, it can affect a lot of things. Because we were just hearing reports yesterday that Nuno Mendes, it's for the summer. Manchester United really like him, but it's for the summer. If PSG spend big on this player, they could want to sell in order to get money into the club, and that could open the doors for Manchester United. If PSG spend big on this player, Napoli might use the money to purchase Manchester United forward Marcus Rashford. We could then use that money in the transfer market. So it could be a big effect on things, on how quickly this January transfer window gets going in terms of sales and outgoing. So I'll be excited to see what happens with this player. I do think with Fabrizio Romano reporting the PSG news, it's very likely that PSG are the front runners in this, and he is more likely to go to PSG than go to Manchester United. But we've got a player that Napoli might want in Marcus Rashford. I don't know how much Napoli would be interested in what PSG are going to offer them in terms of Skriniar. So we'll have to wait for more news to come out on that, but it is interesting. Also, a little bit more news while you get your chats in on that deal. This kind of just flew under the radar because everyone's talking about PSG, Manchester United, Napoli in terms of cover. And it's come out from the Mail in Sami Mokbel that Christopher Vivell, interim Director of Recruitment at Manchester United, is now in talks over taking up a permanent position at Manchester United. There is some optimism that an agreement can be reached with Vivell in the upcoming weeks. Vivell's talent ID is elite. I am very, very excited about this, if there is truth in it. I assume if it's coming from the Daily Mail and it's coming from Sami Mokbel, that there is some truth in this. And Christopher Vivell was obviously a big reason why we managed to get midfielder Kone over the line, which is a really exciting prospect that has now gone into our academy. He's got a fantastic track record. As soon as he came into Manchester United, and you could see that he was already working behind the scenes on the deals of getting the younger players in, the younger talent. Chido Obi-Martin is another one. I was instantly saying that I would love for Vivell to sign on a permanent basis. He came in on an interim basis. It's looking now that he's going to sign on a permanent basis, and this would be absolutely great for Manchester United. Just in terms of what Vivell offers, obviously the Kone deal, it flew under the radar a little bit. It's a really exciting prospect for the future, and Manchester United did really well to get that over the line. There was a lot of clubs interested in this player. He was very well scouted by a lot of clubs, and Vivell did a lot of the groundwork on that deal for Manchester United. Not only that, obviously, Chido Obi-Martin, he got the young player in from Palace that's coming into our academy. That's super exciting. He signed Haaland as a kid for Salzburg from Molde, and he also got Sesko Upamecano Adeyemi whilst at Salzburg, and he's brilliant at identifying top talents at a young age, which is exactly what we're doing for, you know, the likes of Kone and Chido Obi-Martin. So if Christopher Vivell does sign that long-term deal with Manchester United to become the head of recruitment instead of the interim, I think that would be really exciting news and really exciting for the future of Manchester United. I seen Goldbridge say on a show the other day, a lot of people are frustrated with INEOS, myself included. A lot of the stuff they've done, I've been quite unsure over, and I've been a little bit disappointed. I expected more from their takeover at the club, I'm going to be honest, but there is certain things that they have done that are exciting and things that wouldn't have happened under the Glazers, purely under the Glazers. For example, Omar Barada coming in, that was huge. Some of the signings we made in the summer, I think Ugarte was a fantastic signing. I think De Ligt's a good signing. I think Lenny Yoro for the future is going to be a really good signing. And the fact we managed to pull that deal off, we never would have been able to pull that deal off in previous years under the Glazers. Obviously, Joshua Zirkzee doesn't look great right now, but you're never going to have a 100% record. And then you look to Christopher Vivell in terms of getting the younger talents in. To be fair, we had already started working on the youth. Alejandro Garnacho was obviously a big one that we managed to get. I think John Murto actually was in charge of that at the time, and I know he gets a bad rap. But we'd already started working on our youth prospects, but it's just gone up a level with Vivell coming in, and he's got such a good track record. To get him signed up permanently, I think would be very, very good for the club in terms of having people that are best in class behind the scenes. Because if you want best in class on the pitch, you need best in class in terms of recruitment and behind the scenes. And Manchester United's recruitment has been poor for a very long time. Our scouting has been good, but we've not pulled the trigger on the right talents, and we've not got enough players in early doors. We've not jumped ahead of the curve. For example, you know, the likes of the Bellinghams, the Declan Rices, the Jack Grealishes. We've always looked at these talents, but we've never got them in early enough. Christopher Vivell, he's more looking towards the European talents, but in England as well, he's been looking and helping Manchester United, hence the Chido Obi-Martin deal. So I think it's exciting for Manchester United to have somebody like this sign on a permanent basis, so let's hope it happens. We've got another super chat in from Nick P. Says, when it comes to pronouncing names, do a Goldbridge and just say, I don't give a toss. I will say it as I want. It's way funnier. Kai says, isn't Kvara an 100 million player? Well, Fabrizio Romano is reporting an €80 million deal for the player. Let me just have a look at the Fabrizio Romano tweet again as well, because I'm looking at this player here, and he's somebody that whenever I've spoken about in the past, Manchester United needing a number 10 under Ruben Amorim, this is a player that always gets brought up by the community. It always gets brought up when I put tweets out. People talk about Cunha, they talk about Kvara, they talk about, I mean, I've spoken about Eze before, but I've been put down on that quite a lot. Some people talk about João Pedro, but this player is always one that comes in, but I've always seen it as unattainable. €80 million in pounds is £67 million. Now, I think for a player of that quality, that is a pretty good deal. Would Manchester United be able to afford to do that at this current moment in time? I don't think so. I think from a Manchester United point of view, the way you have to look at this is PSG are probably going to get this player. They're going to offer the money. Fabrizio Romano's reporting them as the front runners, and they have been working on this deal since the start of last summer. They've been interested in this player in a while, and they will have been in contact with his camp. He's obviously open to the move. Fabrizio Romano has put it out that it's a very clear opportunity that Kvara can leave Napoli in January. The contract talks stalled and he's not accepted the new contract from Napoli. So I look at it, the most likely thing that's going to happen is that PSG pay the money. I don't think Manchester United are in a position where they're going to go and pay that for a player right now. But with that money for FFP, how I'm looking at it is a permanent move away from Marcus Rashford. That's where I'm looking at how it can benefit Manchester United, because AC Milan currently look like the most likely option, but that would be a loan obligation to buy. If we could get a permanent move wrapped up in January, that would be absolutely fantastic. It really would, because for one, it stops the Amorim being consistently asked about Marcus Rashford from now until the end of the season. 2, it gets money in the bank now for Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS and Amorim to plan how they're going to use it in terms of getting players in for Ruben Amorim for what he wants. They have time to plan with that money and they know that it's definitely there. Even if we don't use it in the January transfer window, you know you've got that money of pure profit. And 3, you look at PSG and you look at a player that we might want in Nuno Mendes, they're probably going to be more inclined to sell because they've just spent a load of money on a player. So they're probably going to be looking to sell a player. Nuno Mendes, is that something that we could work on? So that's how I look at it in terms of benefiting Manchester United. There is reports out there that Manchester United are going to go and ask Napoli for Kvara's availability and try and work a deal for him. I think that's the most unlikely scenario in this situation. I'm looking at how it can benefit Manchester United in other ways. Ollie says, what about Kolo Muani? Kolo Muani is, we've not heard news on that in a couple of days now. I know that we were interested in getting him on loan. I know that Tottenham were interested in getting him on loan, but there's not really been any developments on that. I think Manchester United are focusing on outgoings before we focus on incomings. Remember under Erik ten Hag when we were strongly linked to Timo Werner before he went to Spurs? And Spurs just got that deal wrapped up pretty quickly because Manchester United were focusing on other things. They were focusing on outgoings. So we didn't move for that Timo Werner one. We were going to move for it, but Tottenham just got in there first. I feel like that could potentially happen with Kolo Muani. I think Manchester United definitely probably want to bring him in terms of giving us some depth. But I think another team might move on that deal first, as Manchester United are trying to balance Marcus Rashford going out the door and also Casemiro going out the door as well. By the way, can I just say, because I've not had time to talk about this yet, if we genuinely get a fee for Casemiro, that is the best deal we have done in years. And I would say years. If Manchester United somehow manage to get a fee for Casemiro, honestly, we've pulled off a heist. We've genuinely pulled off a heist. Thank God for Saudi Arabia is what I would say on that. Because if the Saudi League hadn't developed to where it's at, there would be no chance that we would be able to shift Casemiro, never mind for a fee. I think we'd all agree that we'd let him go on a free transfer at this rate just to get his wages off the books. So if we managed to actually get a fee for Casemiro, it would be absolutely incredible. I heard rumours that Saudi might offer Manchester United £25 million. We should be paying them £25 million. Well, we shouldn't. That's a little bit of a joke, but I think a lot of people would be happy to see him go on a free transfer at this point. So if that can happen, that would be fantastic, especially in January. And if we can get £25 million in for Casemiro, I know in terms of how much we paid for him and his wages, it's on in terms of balancing out FFP, it's not that much, but it still brings some money in for us to invest in January as well. And that could mean that we look at another midfielder. There's rumours that Christian Eriksen goes. If Christian Eriksen goes this January, if Casemiro goes this January, Manchester United will have to go into the market for a midfielder. They would have to. So that's another area where Manchester United could be looking at. So again, getting a fee for Casemiro, managing to get a fee for Marcus Rashford this January, it would be huge in terms of getting money in for Ruben Amorim to spend. And Ruben Amorim's been very careful in the way that he has talked about the January transfer window. He said that we can't make any moves unless we sell players. Well, it looks like Manchester United could sell players, and this deal could be part of a domino effect in doing that. Mac Murder says Douglas Luiz. I heard Goldbridge speak about Douglas Luiz yesterday, so I won't speak too much on it. But my actual opinion on Douglas Luiz is if he is available, I would be all over it. I know he's not started as many games at Juventus as what a lot of people would have thought he would do and what he probably would have thought he would do. But I'm a firm believer that Douglas Luiz would be absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I remember watching him for Aston Villa and I used to think, I don't get why Manchester United haven't looked at this player. I know Arsenal were very close to getting him. Very close. They really liked him. That deal never ended up happening and Aston Villa had to sell him last year for FFP reasons. But he's a fantastic player. I don't know why it's not worked out at Juventus, but it's not. He's Premier League proven. He is physical. He's great at set pieces. I think he's what Manchester United would need in there. I would love to go for Douglas Luiz, but I just don't see us doing it. I think there's a possibility in terms of Juventus have already been in contact with Manchester United about Joshua Zirkzee and Marcus Rashford. And if Casemiro goes, we're going to need a midfielder, replace a Brazilian with a Brazilian. But we've not been linked to Douglas Luiz, I don't think, ever. So it'd be very strange if that came out of the woodwork. But if he's available, Manchester United should be all over that. Nottingham Forest, I think, are in the race for it as well. And if Nottingham Forest could do a deal for Douglas Luiz, surely. The thing is, I'm about to sit here and say, if Nottingham Forest could do a deal for Douglas Luiz, surely Manchester United could. Nottingham Forest are doing way better than us. Nottingham Forest are a big club in England. They're third currently in the Premier League. You know, they're fighting for Champions League football. You know, you're in a Champions League race if you go to Nottingham Forest. You come to Manchester United, you're in a relegation battle at this moment in time. I know everything's temporary and Manchester United obviously hold that name and everything like that. And eventually you would like to think Manchester United would be the better choice, but it's definitely something we should be looking at. Kai says, Kolo Muani is PSG's equivalent of Rashford. PSG fans can't wait to get rid of him. Kolo Muani doesn't really strike me as someone I would absolutely love to bring to Manchester United, I'm going to be honest. It's somebody that if we did a loan deal for him, I'd be very excited to see what he could do at Manchester United, but it's not someone I would actively be looking for, and I would be sat here with you guys if we weren't linked to him saying we should definitely go and get Kolo Muani from PSG. He was exciting before he went to PSG, but at PSG he's just not really pulled up any trees at all. But also, at the same time, Manuel Ugarte at Sporting, I absolutely loved. And when he was linked to Chelsea, Liverpool and Manchester United before he went to PSG, I remember saying I would love to go and get Manuel Ugarte. He ended up going to PSG. And at PSG, he didn't really work out. You know, his reputation did go down at PSG. He didn't have a successful time there as what people thought he was going to have. However, he's come to Manchester United and under Ruben Amorim and in the environment he's currently in, is thriving. In my opinion, probably our best signing of the summer. In terms of what you're getting for him, in terms of his age, the future, how important he is to our midfield. So players can have a good reputation and then they can go on to another club. Maybe they don't do as well, and then they can leave that club and a different environment, a different manager suits them. So I wouldn't completely write Muani off just because he's not been completely successful at PSG, because Ugarte was fantastic before he went to PSG, wasn't quite successful there, and he's now doing really well at Manchester United. So different environments, different managers can suit different players, but he's not a player that I would actively be like, yes, Manchester United should go and get. If it was looking like we were going to get him on a permanent, I'd be questioning it a little bit more. But a loan deal when Manchester United are absolutely desperate for forward players, I would not be against it. You can't be fussy, and you've got to take a chance in these scenarios. At the end of the day, Højlund isn't exactly doing the business. Xerxes isn't doing the business. Muani isn't a lethal striker number 9. He's not somebody that scores loads of goals across the season, but he is a forward player that can bring something into this team, and he gives us another option. And you look at it and you think, he can't do any worse than what we're currently doing in terms of Ahmad is the only player we've got at this moment in time in Manchester United's forward line that I am confident he's going to deliver on a weekly basis. So I think taking a punt on Muani wouldn't be the worst idea. It's just whether we can get there before other clubs, because he is somebody that's being monitored by a lot of clubs, and Manchester United are currently focusing on outgoings. Daniel Deluxe, thank you for your super chat. User not found says, get Mamouche before City. Mamouche is a super exciting prospect. We're not going to get him. Manchester City are heavily linked to him. The only thing that I would say about Mamouche in terms of going to Manchester City, and this doesn't, I mean, he's somebody that I know a lot of United fans want, but we haven't been linked to him one bit, I don't think yet, is if you're going to Man City, you are the understudy to Erling Haaland. I think Mamouche is too good to go and be an understudy. Like, I just think he is. Like, look at Alvarez at Man City. He was too good to be an understudy. And so he ended up getting a move. Mamouche is one of them players right now that is super talented. His stock is very high. He's on the rise. Surely you'd want to go to a club where you are going to be going starting games. You're not going to start over Erling Haaland. You'll probably start some games because Pep does, obviously, he has Pep roulette. But if that was me, personally, that I wouldn't be so attracted to that move if I was Mamouche. I'd be looking to go and be a starter. For example, Arsenal, they need a striker massively. They should be all over that. If I was a striker, I'd prefer to go to Arsenal than Man City right now. 1, it's a bigger club, and 2, you're going to be starting up front. I don't know why Manchester United aren't interested in Mamouche either, because his stocks are really high at the moment. He's doing really well, and we should be looking at a striker. Sarath Babu says, Kvara is going to end up at PSG, paving for Rashford to move to Napoli. Exactly what I was saying before. Stephen says Haaland is off to Madrid in the summer, I reckon. Only if they get relegated, which isn't completely off the table. But anyway, that is the show. I've been going on for way too long right now. I was only going to do a 20 minutes on this. But thank you everyone for watching. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this. Do you think there's any chance of Manchester United getting Kvara from Napoli and bringing him to the club? Is there any chance of a swap deal? Would you want Napoli to buy Marcus Rashford on a permanent? And if you think about it, if they get around 67 million, 65 million for Kvara off PSG, 30 million of that surely could go on a permanent move for Marcus Rashford. Let me know your thoughts down below. Hit a like on the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel, and we will see you on the next one.